G'day legends, in this video we are going to be looking at Dana White's most recent comments about Power Slap being able to overtake the UFC. I do not understand Dana White in 2024. It feels like he is losing his mind with all of the decisions that he has been making this year. And he jumped on this podcast, you might have heard of it. It's called the fullsend podcast or the Nelk Boy podcast or Bradley Martin and Friends show. I don't know. I've never actually listened to the podcast, but I saw this one going around. So I jumped on the podcast, listened to it, and extracted some of the best parts of it regarding Dana White and Power Slap, adding a little bit more context to the short form posts that I saw out there on social media. So let us listen to Bradley Martin and Friends and pick up some of it. Now, Dana White seems to be having a lot of back and forth going with Grey Hat Guy. I don't know which one of Full Send the Grey Hat Guy is, but in the videos that we are going to watch together, Bradley Martin's got the white hat on, there's some other dudes with different colored hats on, and Grey Hat Guy is the one that Dana White seems to be having a big problem with. And from the context of the conversation, it seems like these two have been going back and forth quite a bit over Power Slap and how good it is. So straight away, the guy jumps in and he starts talking about how it's pretty much a good time to evacuate a situation when you've done a bad business deal. There's nothing wrong with just pulling away from a bad business deal. And this is what really gets Dana White's blood up. Let's listen to it now.
From the social to the streaming.
Listen, it's okay
gaming.
to just evacuate. It's okay to evacuate a situation. It's not a bad thing to let something go. What are you talking about?
Who the knows?
Yeah.
So there you go. The room goes sort of quiet and awkward when Grey Hat Guy starts bringing this up to Dana White. He's giving Dana all kinds of feedback on it that Dana White really is not used to, okay? Obviously, Dana White has a massive ego. He spends all of his workday down at the Apex, surrounded by yes men who talk about how we should invest another 20 million into the Apex. We should keep these Apex fight nights going. And when he's not there, he's on his yacht in the Mediterranean Sea, waiting for calls from President Trump, okay? Big ego, massive ego, American ego. Sorry, that Trump accent, so good. Moving on. Obviously, that little diatribe about it's okay to pull out of a bad business decision gets Dana White's blood up, and he calls White Hat Guy smart and Grey Hat Guy stupid. Have a listen.
The UFC. No, he's smart. You're stupid.
Oh, yeah.
And he gets it and you don't.
I love that.
Dana White just flat out calls Grey Hat Guy stupid. I don't assume that Grey Hat Guy has got a small ego either. It seems like a room where there's a lot of banter, a lot of chest pumping going on. And this is where Grey Hat Man decides that he is going to start to give it to Dana White.
I believe
announced?
in Power Slap, but I just think there needs to be more
Watch.
your brains aren't operating the right with that sport.
And Dana White responds with the classic, this sport is going to be bigger than the UFC. This is when things really start to get heated in the room about Power Slap.
I know. And I said this before, and I'm going to say it again right now. This will be bigger than the UFC.
No chance.
And eventually, Dana White compares Power Slap to boxing, saying that in boxing, they're just throwing the same combinations over and over again.
A fight, you can take somebody down, you can cut somebody's elbow open. Let's
say it's a boxing match. Boxing, which has been popular for over 100 years.
Because,
what's different?
I mean, the athletes are obviously, I think, different.
They're throwing the same combinations.
Dana, in Power Slap, they are literally just standing there, taking slaps to the face. Boxing is not standing there trying to out-combination the other guy. You have to move around the ring. You've got to work the body, the head. It starts to turn into this intricate chess match, which is a line that you stole and brought over to MMA back when you were trying to get MMA off the ground. Power Slap is literally just for TikToks. It is a short form sport. It is 30 seconds or less, scroll by it. Now, Power Slap with that kind of marketing could be massive. Short form content on the internet is massive. But something that Instagram and TikTok and YouTube have struggled with is that it's very difficult to monetize short form content. So even though Power Slap might blow up and get massive, no one is sitting down and watching a 2.5 hour Power Slap card. Sponsors aren't going to pay that much. for a 2.5 hour power slap card. Like just personally, I don't mind power slap. I don't mind it that much, but I'm never watching the card again. I watched the first power slap card back in the day when they had it immediately after a UFC fight night. Immediately after a UFC fight night. I watched the entire card. It was fun. I had a good time watching it. It was one of my first videos I ever made on this channel. But I never ever watched it again. Never bothered clicking on it ever again. The second time I ever even glimpsed at a full card, was the Paige Van Zandt card. And I watched her walkout. I watched that entire fight. And then I watched the interview afterwards. That's it. That is it. And even then, I didn't bother watching that entire card. Now, because it's short form content, I might be sitting on a Portaloo on a building site, not wanting to go hang another bloody sheet of drywall and flick past it. And if I see a slap, I might not flick past that one and watch that one. But that's about it. But blocking out time, right? Sitting down, blocking out 2.5 hours to sit down when there's UFC on, then old UFC fights to go back and watch as I'm getting hyped up for the next UFC card. When there's one championship, which is just a far better product than the UFC anyway. Honestly, if you ever get sick of watching UFC fight night cards at the Apex that are just boring, chuck on any one championship fight night card and you will have a far better time. Then, of course, there's Cage Warriors to catch back up on. Then there is Eternal to catch back up on. I'd like to get more into BKFC. You know, that boxing that's exactly the same as Power Slap, except there's actually movement around a cage. And BKFC has all that, plus blood and violence. All of those things are way more entertaining than 2.5 hours of some truck drivers slapping each other in the face. Look, I can't even get my mates into a UFC pay-per-view. And I've tried everything. Barbecues at my house, putting on food, going down to the pub, getting smashed with the boys and having it on in the back screen, even though I'm still trying to concentrate on it. UFC, people that aren't into the UFC by now, just aren't into the UFC by now. Do you think those people are going to come around for pizza and beer to watch a 2.5 hour power slap card? Dana, you are trying to make a joke sport, a TikTok sport, a real sport, a short form sport like car jiu-jitsu or pillow cage fighting. That's a thing, by the way. Pillow cage fighting actually exists. But Dana, you are trying to make the equivalent of those two things a legitimate sport, like the UFC or the NFL. It's not going to happen, man. And this is what is just piling on to where I started at the start of this video. Dana White and his decisions in 2024. I do not understand why we still need Dana White as the head of our company anymore. Look, UFC this weekend tried to erase Francis Ngannou's name from history. They cut his name out of Israel Adesanya's speech. They cut him out of there, okay? Then you got Dana bigging up a completely different league as well. Then you've got Dana White playing down fights like Alex Pereira and Tom Aspinall when he should be planting the seeds for that fight to build a super fight next year. Then you got Dana White talking about Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards, which was a 25-minute close fight, like dominant from Bilal, but could have been close when you look at that first round. So it could have been a nail biter of a fight. Bilal dunks Edwards on his head, smashes him up in the third, close first round. Leon starts to get the damage back in the fifth, cuts Bilal open. Maybe he's going for a finish. There is a way to actually sell Bilal Muhammad as entertaining if you were a real promoter. But instead, he comes out and goes, not much of a barn burner, was it? Dana White is actively anti-promoting UFC fights while hyping up a completely different company. What is going on? Why do we still have Dana White? The UFC these days is just a copy and paste production machine. Call up fighter A, call up fighter B, go to the same bloody UFC photos that we all use on our tier lists, put them on a dog shit poster, pump it out. Do it again next week. They don't do any promo like they used to do back in the day when it was hire a studio and have Stipe Miocic shadow boxing in the ice and the snow, and then cut to Francis Ngannou in a sand mine shadow boxing around sand. They used to have these sick little promos for fights. They don't do any of that anymore. Now they just follow them around, chuck it up on Embedded, put it up on the next week's pay-per-view. We're back at the Apex after that. Eat it up. Like, Dana White is a useless entity that is now anti-promoting our sport and bringing up another sport that he has pumped so much money into. I can't even imagine how much money he's wasted on Power Slap so that I can take a shit and scroll past it. Anyway, that's the end of this rant. It's the weekend. I hope you guys have a fantastic one. I am going to be live streaming for all of UFC 305. So if you want to pop in, come and say hi and check that out, please do. If you enjoyed this video and it's your first time here, I would super appreciate your subscribe if you want to hit that button down there. If you are enjoying these videos and you want to help out the channel, all you have to do is hit that like button. That helps this channel grow. Until then, you guys have a great weekend and I will see you in the next one.